Augochlora, Augochlorops, and Agapostumum. We've discussed Agapostumum already, and we'll go back and review that in terms of identifications. But the first thing I want to do is flip to the genus memorization script. Oh, wait, have I shared my screen yet? No. All right, I'm sharing my screen. Now we can jump to the genera memorization scripts. So most of you should have this file. If you don't, you can get it from Claire and just email her. And so if you look here, we have all the green bees in the same area: Augochlora, Augochlorella, Augochlorops, Agapostumum. So we talked about Agapostumum as a very distinctive, and these are all bright, shiny, metallic green. Each species in the East, and I think in the West too, are always, someone can put into the chat if this is not the case, always have at least a large component on the thorax as bright, shiny green. There are other genera that in the West have bright, shiny green members. So Hoplites is a good example. Osmia is another example where there are some that have those characteristics. So you can't simply say, oh, it's bright, shiny green, I'm going right to the Halictidae, Augochlora, Agapostumum groups. But in the East, you can. And they are often the most common species. So the Augochlorella group is, Augochlorella aurata is our most commonly collected bee species. The Augochlorellas are more field-oriented. The Augochlora in the East, it's only Augochlora pura, is very much associated with woodlands. And depending on where you are, you can get both, particularly if you're at the edge of woods. And then the Augochlorops is field-oriented, often very barren areas, very open areas. And we'll talk about each of these. And then the Agapostumum group is field-oriented and almost never occurs in forested environments, but certainly can show up along the edges. So the Agapostumum, if you recall, has this really nice character, and if we have time, we'll show this again, where we have the rear face of the propodium is clear, and you can look at, I think it's the first session to review this. The rear face of the propodium is completely encircled by a raised line. A carina would be the technical term. And you see that, you know what it is. You don't have to go any further into details. The other three are a little more nuanced. Okay, so and we're going to show all these things, but I just want to talk through what you should be looking for. Augochlorops has a tegula, so the tegula is the wing cover. We'll see this, that's not oval. So it basically, people would describe this as D-shaped or with a projection on the lower part, but it is a non-oval situation. We'll show you those. The Augochlora and Augochlorella groups are very similar looking. And this is, they have a series of characters that help separate them out, actually quite a number, but the objective for me today is to help you do that quickly. So there are characters that are good, but are, let's call it, tedious to find. And if you're dealing with large collections of these things, you want to speed through them. So we'll talk about that in a second. And I think rather than talk about them here, in the spreadsheet, you can read that as we go along. I'm going to talk you through while we look at them on actual specimens. I think I'm not probably going to use the Discover Life guides today for this. We've been emphasizing that just so you got used to the workflow. We might next time review this because I'm not sure we're going to get to the males. So we're going to start with females. The Augochlora, Augochlorella groups have a different pattern, some different patterns of separating them in the males versus females. But let's just deal with the females first. They're going to be the most common anyway. So now,
pretty sure we're having some lag issues.
We're having lag issues? Yeah. Okay. I'm wondering if that's has to do with number of people online. I wonder if we should cut some of the people off here who are online and maybe just share
Just do you and me?
just you two. So Sydney and Janan, are you on? Okay. And Eric, I don't think is on. So I'm not sure why. So I think it has to do with the session. Sorry about this. We're trying to figure out why we're getting lags in the internet feed.
Here ones the first couple times.
Yeah. So, and we were doing the same thing. If anyone has any ideas on what may be causing all this lag for us when it was working before, that's good. So I'll try and slow down my movements so that when we are looking at the microscope, which do you see this here, Claire?
Yep.
Okay. And when I'm moving the cursor, is that lagging? And is my voice lagging?
I'm noticing it with your voice to words syncing and then like it just being choppy with your face, but I haven't seen it so much yet with the beat.
Okay, so the cursor is moving smoothly now?
Appears to be.
Okay, and my voice though has a bit of a lag? Or sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. Participants can give us feedback too. I'll try and just slow down here, which I have a tendency to talk too fast. Okay, and we can turn off my video feed perhaps, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, here is Augochlorella. Now, the fast way, and we're going to go right to the fast session, and then I'll show you details that will check your ability to determine these quickly. The fast way is to just look at the scutum area. So I'm going to presume that you have already checked to see if it's an agapostomum. And that would be looking back here at the rear face of the propodium. I'll show that in a second, that it does not have a carina running around it. And then you would, and also agapostomum in almost all cases are going to be far larger than the three other green bee groups. So right now, then you would look at this area. Here's a tegula. Here's the scutum. There's a pin going through the scutum in this case. And here's the other tegula. So a couple things to note. First of all, this tegula, we're looking at Augochlorella, is oval. It's not, there's no departure from oval. It's pretty much a perfect oval. And then, so that kicks out Algochloropsis, which does not have an oval one. So you now know it's either Augochlorella or Augochlora. So the way to speedily tell the difference between the two is to look at this fore area of the scutum. So because of the lighting here, I'll try and change it in a second. It's not absolutely clear, and it's actually a little subtle. But again, when you start looking at tons of these, this makes a big difference. Comparing this area to this area, this is rougher. There's more surface topography. It's not great, but it's a small amount of surface topography here. As you'll see, hopefully, in Augochlora, this whole scutum is basically uniform in its pitting and its surface sculpturing. So if you see the rough part, Augochlorella, if you see, and of course the tegula is oval, and if you see a uniform field of pits and particularly surface sculpturing, we're not talking a lot, this is a subtle amount of roughness, let's call it, then it's Augochlora. And when you're dealing with thousands of these sometimes in a collection, this sounds like not a big deal, but you can just run through tons of specimens. Then we'll talk about, well, maybe this specimen isn't so obvious. Where are the double checks in terms of the other characteristics that separate these two groups out in particular? Let me see first if I can change the perspective on this to give you a little bit better idea, perhaps, on the surface sculpturing. So I'm just changing it to the side. Oh, I could try the lighting changes too. So let's compare the rear part here, which is relatively smooth, and you, I think, maybe can see here in the fore part, this surface roughness. Now, let me change the lighting here subtly. I don't know if that helps that much, but maybe if I do it at a scance, you'll get the picture. Also, because it's so easy to get specimens. Oops, I just knocked it. Specimens of this group. You can practice on your own specimens in terms of splitting the two. I can't remember Augochlorella pura and similar species which show up to the south, how that works out west. Like, I'm not even sure that in some areas they have Augochlorella, but in most of the US and Canada, it's a problem because you have commonly have both. Okay, so let's look at the other characters that separate Augochlorella, which is what we have here, from Augochlora, which are good characters to talk about because these are characters that come up all the time in ID work and can be confusing to, particularly if you're just starting out. Okay, what are we looking at? Wait a minute. How's my lag going?
Got a lot of feedback from the chat that it's not a bother.
Okay, all right. I'll continue to go slow because, again, I tend to go too fast. So this is the wing. This is the tip of the wing. Here's the marginal cell. That's the stigma, submarginals. We're looking at the tip. Okay, so in Augochlorella, this specimen here, the tip comes up and is just lying on the margin of the wing. Okay, no clipped ends, which we'll see in Augochlora, or any real alterations to that basic pattern. That is one of the things that's my second go-to character, because I can flip the specimen. I often will put my finger behind the specimen to, which gives more contrast to see through the wing. And then I can just do a double check. Oh, I see, it is Augochlorella or Augochlora if I have questions about the scutum or I can't see the scutum well. Okay, the other character is a, let's see, how am I going to do this? I'm going to stick the head of the pin in. Well, there's a couple more characters, but is the next one we're going to talk about is the mandible character. And this is a good one. I am having bad light issues here for some reason. Let's see if we zoom in. I think the white balance might shift then. There we go. Not too terribly bad. All right, we're looking at the tip of the mandible, which I wonder if I can change the light balance here. I don't see any auto white balance. How about that? Let's try that. Ooh, it makes it whiter, but not brighter. Maybe we'll come back another time and see if there's ways to, I don't see anything on this screen for changing the lighting. So I might try moving the lighting around a little bit here. What we're looking for is the very tip. And we want to look at the tip because in algo, I'm going to manhandle this a little bit. These are relatively small bees, so I can't get any greater power out of this. I don't really like this too much, but let's see if I tip the perspective over this way a little bit more. So I chose a specimen because one of the mandibles is slightly open, so I can see the tip a little bit better. So I will define this with so what we're looking at with the cursor. So here's one mandible, the other mandible over which this one is lapping is against the face. This one is jutting out a little bit. And if we look at the outline, it's like a mitten. So here, for people who know what mittens are, here is the outline, and here is the thumb of the mitten. So we would call that a tooth. And then the mandible curves away now. See if we can change the lighting a little bit. So if you see, I'm going to put the thing to look for is that tooth. Okay, and I'm changing. There's the cursor is on the tip now. I'm going to change that lighting a number of times, so maybe you can define the tip a little bit there. So I think you have seen it. So in, which we'll see next, in Augochlora pura, it's not going to be mitten shaped. There's two teeth, but they're more pointed and more equal. Not quite, but it's a different shape. So that's another good, relatively quick character. That would be my third go-to ID for this separating these two genera. The last one, and one that's used all the time in your classic Michener and McGinley kinds of texts, and also Mitchell, is, I think, the least useful one, although technically it's technically awesome. But the actuality is it's really hard to see, even when don't have this kind of lighting issue going on. And now change this to vertical. Because you're dealing with suture lines. Remember when we were looking at suture lines around the Clypeus? It's the same problem. There is just a ton of glare in these areas, but we're going to try and define it. But this is what we're seeing is the reason that I almost never use this character. Can we see the, no, we can't really see the mandibles. I thought maybe we could see the mandible a little bit better from this direction because it's white behind it. Maybe we can. That one juts out. You can kind of see, it's just a weird oblique angle to it. There's the tip, and that's the tooth recessed, but not very well defined. What we're looking for in terms of this other character is, oh, I wonder if I can change to a black background. Let's try that. It shows up as blue for some reason here, probably because it's not really black. Where the heck did it go? Oh, there we go. Okay, that might be better. All right, let's zoom in, focus on the head, and what we're looking for, see, it's just so glossy. I'll just tell you what to look for, and you can try and find it, and I think you'll be frustrated in the same sort of way. Is roughly, here's the Clypeus. There is a suture line that's running, let's call it somewhere in this area, that's separating the Clypeus from the rest of the head. And in that suture line, it's basically a nice sort of sweeping right angle like this in Augochlorella, and in, unless I have it reversed, but I believe not, Augochlora, there's a dip in it. Let's see, I'm going to try one more time here.
While you're there, can you bring up the mandible a little bit too, because it is showing up better.
Okay. All right, we'll try that too. So this is not, I'm not going to spend too much more time because it really, I just don't use it. I just want to let you know. Okay, well, you can kind of see it here. So here's the Clypeus. This is the supraclypeus area. This is the paraocular area. It merges with the rest of the head. So here's the suture line between the Clypeus, supraclypeus, and now here is the edge that we're concerned with. So it sweeps down. You can see this suture line. If you use your imagination, this line goes like that, right angles. That means it's Augochlorella. Most species do that. In Augochlora, it's going to go down, up, and over. And hopefully this other specimen will let you see that. All right, let's revisit with this better look. Ooh, that is a better thing. Black. We like black. So here's our mandible tip area, slightly oblique angle, but you can see. I'll change it again because it is so much better light. Here's the mitten, thumb. There's the tip. Now let's see if I rotate this. Let's see if we can see that a little, maybe I'll turn it this way. A little bit. Ooh, you might be able to see this way better now. Oh, good. Such simple excitement. Right. Okay, yeah, good. So getting into focus. So here we go. Tip of the mandible. What is that black line doing down there? Hopefully it doesn't mean my computer is restarting. So here is the tip, and here is the mitten, thumb, right there. So that's very characteristic and not an Augochlorella character. Okay, at this point, I'm going to shift now to the other tricky member, and then we'll go to Algochloropsis too, but let me make sure I have, there we go. So now, so in a very vibey way, compared to Eastern at least, and I think this is true out West, Augochlorella is a little bit bigger. Not that much bigger, but a little bit bigger. And you often, in a whole section of green bees, which what people normally do is they would take their whole collection of bees, sort everything into groups. So green bees as a group make a lot of sense. And you would see, oh, there's some slightly bigger ones. Let's check those out. And often they're these Augochlorella pura things. They also are have this, let's call it this color green, whereas the Augochlorellas often have a much stronger gold cast to them, in my opinion, and these are more green. But that also, that rule can be broken very easily by all these things. You go to in the south and towards Florida, and everything turns blue, including these. All right, so let's go to the scutum area again, and we're going to shift this a little bit. So here we are. Here we are at the scutum. And first of all, tegula, it's a little bit dark, and I realize I have the white background on there because of the tag. I'm going to take that off in a second, but here's an oval tegula. Okay, here's the scutellum boundary. This is the whole scutum. I'm going to now make the scutum in, and I'm going to just subtly run the focus back and forth here. And what you should be noticing is that this whole surface is texturally about the same. It's uniform, and in Augochlorella, as maybe you saw last time, this whole area up here was slightly rough. In Augochlorella, this is all uniform. With a bit of practice, particularly if you're doing a long series, this is all you need to see. Okay, now, what about, and I'm going to take off the tag now. What if you need to double check, which we all need to do periodically, because not all specimens are this good looking. Okay, so first place we're going to go is to the wing again. And I'm going to take this down, find the specimen in here, and let's see if we can get a good angle on our wing. And hopefully this is a good wing. Pretty good. And we can play with the lighting here too. Let me zoom up as much as possible. Oops. Darn it. Okay. I think we got it. Focus. Ooh, I want to get that tip a little bit better defined. So I'm going to take this back down, pivot it a little bit more this way. And you can see how having your thumb under pops the venation a little bit better. Let's see if we can exemplify that under here, or your finger. Okay, yeah, good. See, well, actually, that's not bad, but I find putting my finger behind the wing sometimes under my microscope really is useful. All right, so It's a little bit in focus. All right. We'll change it. Wing, stigma, marginal cell, submarginal cells, tip of the wing. This roughness shows that this is a specimen that has been around for a while, so it's older. People use that sometimes as a measure of age, you know, how many cuts are in there. And I'm going to put my finger under here because I think it does pop things a little bit better. And I'm going to change the focus. I want you to look at the tip of the marginal cell. So what you're looking at is often described. I'm going to change the angle here in a second, but what is often described is that the marginal cell is clipped. So it's truncate, which is like chopped off at the tip, and you can see this extra vein running out there, which I don't know if it has a name, but probably does. That instead of having the tip pointed or the marginal cell tip pointed and on the margin, it's chopped off, and this remnant, excuse my terminology, this remnant vein, I'm going to get out of the way here, is there at the end. So that often shows up really nicely unless the wing's messed up. Let me shift this again to a slightly different angle by spinning it and seeing, oh, let's see, this is, yeah. Need to have a better stand, I think, for this operation. Okay, so I don't know if this is the same wing or not, but there's some hairs. So interestingly, bees do have lots of hairs sometimes on the wing. Submarginals, marginal, the margin. Here is this truncate tip and this small residual vein there. It often shows up when you're looking at it as basically a clipped end to the marginal cell. So that's a good one. That's my number 2 character. If I am unsure about the scutum stuff I'm looking at. Now the other one is are the mandibles, which are different, quite a bit different here. And let's see, I want to change the angle. I'm going to shift to sticking the pin into the clay. And let's see if we can get a good shot of the head and mandible this way. It's got some glare. Let me try angling it. Or maybe angling the lights a little. No, like that. Let's try it this way. Unfortunately, it's not sticking out, which is usually the case, so it's not a bad thing to have a specimen where both the mandibles are closed, because that's the way it is. You can open them when they're fresh, but super tedious to do. And most of the time you don't really need that. Okay, you can we can work with this, I think. And we'll play with the lighting here in a little bit, but I want you to see this is the mandible running here. This is the one on the outside, lapping the inner one. And as some of you did in a participation, which we have not published yet, this is random, whether they lap left over right or right over left. But this is the tip to look at. So if we look at this tip here, what you're seeing is almost a fork. So there's a little bit of dirt here, but see, it's sharper and it's V-shaped in there. It's like it's cleft rather than mitten-like. This one here is usually slightly recessed, but basically it's got this really different, more of a fork shape than a mitten shape mandible thing going on. Let's see if some lighting shifts here are useful and some focus playing around. So again, here's the one tooth, here's the front tooth. I'm going to shift this one more time to be more in this direction. See if that is useful. And there might be, that looks more straight down, and there's some bad fiber on there. Maybe you can see this. Again, we'll play with the lighting here. What we're looking at is, this is the mandible here, this labrum, clypeus edge, and here is the tip of the mandible. Not very well defined, but if we play around with this, you'll see there's a fork-like end pointed on the tips. This is recessed, but it is not like a little rounded mitten, and the tip is not rounded, it's more pointed. So this, again, it's just one of those things you have to see. It's very difficult to describe definitively to people, but there's your tertiary identification character. And now we'll look at the suture lines and see if we can find those, which for practical purposes, I never look at because it's just really difficult to detect them. All right, let's zoom this down, find that area and see if this is going to be a good shot. How's our lagging going?
Seems okay.
All right. Okay, so are we going to see, let me angle this to the side a little bit more. So much glare.
We're at 12:05, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 12:05. You have 25 minutes.
25 minutes, okay. All right. We'll try some changing of lighting too, but okay, clypeus, this is the suture between clypeus, supraclypeus, antennal sockets there. This is paraocular area. This is the eye. And if you use your imagination, this suture line, paraocular from clypeus, goes down, drops back up, and goes over there. Let's see if we can play with the lighting a little bit. So it's like a little peninsula going into the clypeus before coming up, instead of just a right angle or close to a right angle. So you can kind of see it. It's darker, but it's hard to see the line. I'm going to do one more attempt by really bringing it over to the side here. Look at that fiber on that thing. And just a different angle. So here it is again, down, up. Now let's see, go a little bit higher. Get that right in focus, and you can, we're just going to shift some of the lighting around. Oops, try not to shift the specimen. And so I think you can kind of see it, but you also see not very straightforward to find, given that these lights, and when you're not looking at it online either, it's equally problematic in terms of finding that and having it become a consistent character, but it's the one that's most often used in traditional keys.
I have some color questions.
Mm-hmm.
Is the race car green variable in one or the other of these genera? Gold, for example?
Yeah, so you can get a gold component and you can get a blue component in either groups. Augochlorella tends to be less prone to color variations until you get to the deep south. So Florida, in those areas. And I'm not going to really be able to speak for like what happens in Texas. Why is that so white? And wow, something happened there. Clicking on things. So yeah. Okay, so now that kind of covers Augochlora females. And I'm going to now show you a Augochlorops.
Before we move on, any questions? Pop in the chat. I think I had heard some mention of the other taxa in the West also having the Augo group bright green colors. Were those taxa listed?
If I understand the question, the genera guide should be good, let's call it, for anything from the Central America, Caribbean, north. And so as part of that, we would have investigated, hopefully, if there were any non-metallic green members. And that would show up when you clicked on bright metallic green. It would obviously include these, but if you clicked on dark, if there was a dark member or non-metallic member, then whichever genus had one, which I'm not aware that any do, except for Agapostumum in the Caribbean, would show up also in that other list. So theoretically, we have covered that. I just don't know off the top of my head, other than Agapostumum, whether within the North American continental area, which is also defined as having the Caribbean in it, whether there are many or any specimens of Augochlorella, Chloropsis, Chlora that are not metallic green. Does that make sense? All right.
And that is the clipped marginal cell tip, not on the margin of the wing.
So that's sort of a technically yes, technically no, because the marginal cell is literally clipped at right angles or truncate, and so the tip itself is in a way gone. It's the truncate area, so it's both on and not on, because one edge is now away and one edge is touching, right? So it's the notion that it's squared off that's important versus having a tip. So if you recall from, I think, last session when we were looking at Anthidium, Anthidiellum, their tip of their marginal cell, in addition to being rounded, was the apex was not on the margin itself. In this case, it's just ambiguous, right? Because the tip itself is cut off or truncate. If that's not clear, ask some more.
And I also took screenshots and we'll be posting some pictures for reference.
Oh, great. Okay, so now we are getting into, we should have like a little guide or something. Okay, now we're getting into the Augochlorops group. And so first of all, metallic green and non-oval. See how this is a little bent in the, indented in the middle or winged out at the end, depending on how you think about these things. The top end is uniformly rounded. The bottom, though, is asymmetrically, people call it D-shaped, although I'm not quite sure why, because this is really projecting. Doesn't look so D-ish to me, but that just is a giveaway. A couple lazy glossums have that, and you'll see this in a few other genera, I believe Nomia, but in the green group, if it has this, it is Augochlorops. So that's a giveaway. Let's look at a couple other things though, and I don't really look, because that's so obvious. I don't look at the wing or the mandible structure, so we're not going to bother. But if you have a specimen, you can look at those too and check them out. But I'll show you, first of all, these groups have all sorts of tendencies towards blues and sometimes even purples. particularly in the south. And we're not going to get into species for a while on anything, but there's all kinds of intriguing / difficult species ID things, even though they have a lot of, beautiful aspects to them. But here's another character that is not absolute, but if you see it, you also have Augochlorella, this is sometimes called a fimbria. So here is the abdomen, tergites. This is T2, I believe, tergite number 2. This is the rim. I think this would be right on the rim, let's call it. I don't quite know. These hairs are bold and in a row, and I'm just going to kind of cycle through some of the focus areas here so you can see this, and very regimented. So you can see the rim right there, and these are coming right out of base of the rim. However, a couple species either have this way reduced or minimal. This is Augochlorella metallica, and it hasn't been described yet as a full species, but we already know from molecular work that it is. So that's sufficient for Augochlorella. They tend to be on the slightly bigger phase, so they often stick out. And metallica in general, while not showing up here well, because again of probably white balance. Let's see if I flip white balance here. You can't see it, but there's some blue tinges in here that show up rather well. So that's that group. Oh, let me see.
Wait, we have a question.
Okay. Yep.
Laurel, I thought I saw you had your hand up. Do you want to put in chat? Are you able to unmute?
Hello. I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Sam, you can hear her?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi. The characteristic of hairs on the edge of the tergite is not in this cheat sheet of our B genera memorization script.
Right.
Okay.
And the reason is that some species don't have that. So it's not an absolute measure, but
okay.
if it does have it and it's bright green, it's an Augochlorella.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't happen, you have to still look at the tegula. If it doesn't have them, rather, you still need to look at the tegula to look for the D shape, because some species of Augochlorella don't have this fimbria, that really distinctive band of thickened hairs along the rim.
Fimbria. Thank you.
Okay. So let's see. I'm going to show you just as a review an agapostomum, but I'm also going to go back to one of these specimens to show you that the non-agapostomum propodium thing, which is not having a complete carina around the rim.
You can look in the teams and see a nice little picture guide on.
What do you mean?
They go into the teams under the photo files and photos. They'll see some screenshots.
Of the agapostomum.
Of this curved one, because we had a couple questions and email about it. So I made a
you did? Okay. All right. So Claire has already resolved that. And so I'm just going to quickly
do one of the carina.
Yeah. So this is lacking carina here. There is sharp edges sometimes. This is Augochlorella, and sometimes not. And we know that there is likely 2 species in the Augochlorella aurata group, just to, make things complicated. And then you can look at Claire's shots of the agapostomum carina to review that. So I think we have maybe 10 minutes. Maybe I'll show. So let me just talk about males. So in terms of agapostomum, the carina thing still works. In terms of Augochlorella, the D-shaped or the non-oval, let's call it, tegula totally works. And then you're stuck with the Augochlorella and Augochlora group again. Problem is that the mandible thing does not work and the scutum thing does not work for the males. What does work is, and I'm going to pull a specimen here, see if I can show it, is the outline of the rim of S4, so that's sternite 4, and the wing measure. So a lot of times I'm going to, depending on the specimen, look at one or the other. So those are the two main ways. Let's see if I can find, here's Augochlorella aurata male. This one looks good. Let me get it on a block and remove this. So we're going to look at the sternite measure here. The wing is the same, so we're really just going to concentrate on figuring out their little sternite issues. Let's get up a little bit more. The problem with sternites is that a lot of specimens the abdomen is curled or bent in a way that you cannot see. This one is pretty good. I'm going to change the perspective. All right, so maybe I'm going to twist this a little bit here. Turn this down, get it that way, I think might be better. And zoom in a little bit. Okay, so here's what we're seeing. So this is the underside. These would be the sternites. That should be one, I think, is up here. There isn't a character on one, the presence of a ridge or a very tall ridge or not. And I can't even remember whether Augochlora or Augochlorella has that. I think Augochlora has the ridge and Augochlorella does not. Problem is, this is almost never in view. So I don't even know what that character is, but there's something there. If we look at the sternite, so there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you see 3, the edge is straight across. Get things a little bit in focus. So you can see the rim edge here, straight. Okay, they both have that. But in Augochlorella, the S4 rim, try and get that into focus a little bit better. The S4 rim, and just the angle here is a little off, but I think you can see pretty clearly it is concave. It's not completely straight across. It's dipped there. So that's the character. And then if you looked at the wing, you would see in the Augochlorella the fact that it also has a
Can you do that again? Count out the sternites.
Yeah, let me pull a Augochlora male and do it on that one. Here is the Augochlorras. I have so many that I don't even bother with them. Yeah, I may not have
I don't think I have any.
a handy. Yep. They are so common. Oh wait, here we go. I had to hold the box ready. All right, so this looks like a male. And so let me just do a quick check here. Yep, and I think we can see this. Let me pull this out, stick this in upside down. So we're going to now look at the sternites in a Augochlora male, and what you should see is S4 as completely straight across, similar to the rim of S3. some point I'll get good at this. All right, so if we're looking at this, I'm going to show a couple different angles and change the lighting again. So it's hard to see the base, but this is S3 here. So this segment is sternite 3. That's the rim of sternite 3. This is S4. This is the rim of S4, and it is more or less straight across there, not indented or concave like in Augochlorella. I'm going to play with some lighting here to see if that shows the, oops, can't knock the specimen. I'll change the angle here too. Ooh, that might be pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's change the focus. So we'll change some lighting aspects here. I'm playing hand shadow maker. Can do, oh, I wonder if a little white card will shine light in different places. How about that? Look at that. Ooh, little trick. So you can see that S4, I'm going to point it out, is not concave. It's basically straight, basically the same as the rim of S3. And so let me, oh my God, just dropped my government ID card onto the specimen. Might be illegal use of a government ID card. Hopefully, bureaucratic police are not here. Okay, so let's see if we can do this again. To better define, yeah, we're going to bring some light into that shadow area. S3 rim, S4 rim straight across. The wings, maybe I can get that wing into focus, should also have the clip to them. Well, I'll try and get that in focus because the clip is more difficult to see, but you can, so that's the marginal cell, that's the clip area. Let's move this and bring up the magnification, center it. See if we can see it. So we're now, it's a little bit dirty specimen. Again, hairs are reflecting odd. I'm going to try the card trick here some more, but this is the marginal cell and it's truncated, okay, with the little, but from the opposite direction, with a little bit of vein action over there. And I'm going to change the focus to see if that helps. Maybe put some, oh, there we go. Change the focus. It's the card trick. Get that out of the way. Okay, so, you know, nature isn't all right angles and stuff, but you can see that that's truncated. There's that little remnant of the vein there. It's not, the tip is not extending out. So if this, if you can imagine this vein would continue in Augochlorella and end up on the tip, but it's not. It's clipped like with a pair of toenail clippers. And so again, another truncate. That's what a truncate wingtip looks like. I think we're kind of out of time here, but do we have time for questions? Are there questions?
Not yet. You got 3 minutes. Any cues?
Okay. I think we're going to get into bombus.
Can you count out the sternum?
Anthophora. Count out the sternites. Okay, let me find a specimen.
And put in the chat your vote for the next genus.
I am voting for alphabetical because that is easy for my mind. But we can listen to other people. Well, everyone has their favorites. So I guess Anthophora would theoretically be next, but in a bunch of obscure, wait a minute, I put that in the wrong box.
We got one
Okay.
Melisodes.
All right. Melisodes, okay.
Two.
Sternites. Let me find a specimen that has its abdomen in good view. Maybe a big thing here. Ooh, how about this? That's kind of dark. Well, fine. Its abdomen is out. Okay, we're looking at a what I get it, Dionomia. All right, we're going to see the sternites in a Dionomia heteropoda. Very cool, but weird Halictidae member. Oh, and it has, if I have time, I'll show you. It's got super D-shaped, here, we'll just do that first. D-shaped tegula. This is a great species. I have them living in a sand mine not far from my house. And some years they actually are in my garden. Not that I'm bragging or anything. Okay, so here, these are really big things too. These are as big as bumblebees. Let's see if I can box this a little bit. So you can see here that this is, first of all, it's a very large tegula. These things are crazy weird to begin with. And here's the wings out. So this is not oval shaped either. And you can imagine that. I'm just trying to get some lighting thing so it better defines the edges. So that's Dionomia, but let's see the sternites. This is a nice specimen because it's big and the abdomen is sticking way out. All right, so first of all, you see it has a sting, so we know it is a female, and we can see the sternites pretty well here. My pointer, so here is so S1 and T1, you can see a little bit of the edge of T1 should line up. So the rims, although they're not connected, this are the counterpart tergites that lap over the sternites. So there should be correspondence between T1 and S1, T2, S2. You're looking at the underside, so it's going to be the sternites, and they're often, depending on the species group, there can be some really good characters on the sternites, but mostly because that's the natural way is we look at the characters, if we can, on the upper part. So S1, there's the rim, weird little dip in it there. S2, S3, S4, S5, and then S6. And I'm going to pull this down further. So I'm not clear, it's not clear to me whether all species have S7 and S8. We talked about Andrina, and we looked at S8 in Andrina, which was poking out. I have a feeling that all species have a S7 and S8 somewhere. I could be wrong, though, and a lot of times they are hidden from view. So Andrina is the only one that I know that you ever are using S8 as a character, and the rest have S7, sometimes Megachile males are useful, but most of the rest of the time, their S8 is hidden, and sometimes S7 is hidden. A couple of species groups have some of these sternites can be retracted. Osmia and some of the Megachile are notorious for doing that. So I hope that answers some what are sternite questions.
And we are over time and don't have any questions in the chat.
All right.
And you have
That's because everyone is so advanced now. But we can answer questions online by email too. And
And join the team, and then you can chat in the
Right.
Microsoft team.
And these, and Claire is putting these all up, and we're thanking Sydney for helping monitor the whole system, and Dan Carr for giving us space on his web server. Look at that lovely scopal patch. Who else am I forgetting?
Craig Larsonair.
Oh, Craig Larsonair for the wonderful scope. And President Biden for allowing us to exist. Okay, so I think we're good. I'm gonna stop talking or I'll get in trouble.
That you will. All right, everyone. You'll get a follow-up email. See you next week. Normal time. New place.